Hello everyone, in this tutorial you will be learning how or what a component is in CryEngine and how to make your own. And this is what we have as our teaching agenda today. So I am Alex, I am a VR company owner, and we use CryEngine for our operations and projects. And this is a very basic tutorial-ish. So I'm assuming that you already know C++ and that you have the source code for CryEngine and that you've compiled it into your own engine. And C++, you don't need to be an expert in it. It's good to be knowledgeable in it. I am not an expert. I can just get around with it. I am better with other languages. And just a quick note, these are going to be quick and dirty tutorials. I don't plan on editing a lot of this, so please bear with me. So let's get started. Now, hopefully you already have your project in CryEngine, so let's just go into it. Okay, don't worry about these asserts. I moved some stuff around and it sort of broke, but it's not going to hurt me or you if that happens to happen to you. So if this does happen, just press disable asserts. You'll be okay. All right, great. So for my sake, since we're on virtual reality, we need to disable some virtual reality stuff. And let's just go ahead and make a new level. Let's call this, oh, not select, new level. Let's just call this component testing. Yeah, let's put a underscore there. Good practice. Yep. Component test. There we go. Let's make this really small. Does not need to be big. Yeah, let's go. All right, and this is our world, our empty world. Good old CryEngine. Let's make this a little bigger. So let's just put an empty entity down. To empty entity. And enable helpers. Oh, it's gone. My fault. There we go. So this is our empty entity, and just to give it some oomph, let's add a mesh component. And we just get a default CryEngine sphere. I don't even think it's physicalized. It is not. So let's just get into it. A component is something that makes an entity unique. So let's say I want this to be a little bit smaller. I'm just pressing 3 on the keyboard. Okay, that's not an entity, or it's not a component, but I'm going to add a component. Let's add a light component. Point light. Okay, and look at that. We have this entity emitting light. So by default, excuse me, by default, this entity and its translation, its point light translation, is 0, 0, 0 rotation, 0 translation, and then a regular scale. Scale shouldn't affect it too much, but let's just give it some rotation, 30. Nothing there. Let's do 100, 111. So, but if we modify this 100, it disappears. And this is X, Y, and Z, translation, rotation. So let's just go back. So a component is something you give an entity, whether it's a physical parameter, data you're holding or receiving from somewhere. It's just something that's attached to an entity. It's sort of like you have a Nerf gun and you decide to put a scope on it. Think of the scope as the component. It is an add-on. And if you want to take off a component, just do this, remove. Okay, so this actually should be physicalized. That's interesting. That's all right. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Let's see. I guess I am going to worry about it. Let's do physics. Just kind of curious here. Let's go ahead and visualize it. That's interesting. Oh, don't worry about it. That's not I'll do a physics tutorial another day. So this is what a component is. Let's see if we could add something else. Mesh is also a component. A component is just what makes an entity itself. So let's go to geometry. There's animated mesh and mesh. What about physics? Or ragdoll. Let's see it. Rigid body. Give it a rigid body. And then give it a mesh component. Maybe that'll do something. Yep. And we physicalized it. So rigid body literally is just giving it physics. And you can modify it. So if I want the sleep speed to be 1, it'll stop. Think about sleep speed as at what point in velocity do you want this just to stop? Okay, and damping, think of it as friction. I don't remember maximum time step, so I'm not going to cover it, but this isn't a physics tutorial, but you guys get the idea. So if I were to remove this, and restart, it doesn't move anymore. Okay, it's not physicalized, but I want it to move. I just Control Z. Okay, so that is what a component is. I'm going to teach you guys how to make your own custom component because you can't get anywhere in CryEngine without making a component. So CryEngine is definitely a programming heavy engine. There is something called FlowGraph, where it's like a Unreal Engine blueprint. That's the easiest way to say it. Let's just go here. They got nothing here. That's okay. But you can do that, but you can only get around and do so many things with FlowGraph or Blueprint. It gets nasty really fast, and if you need to continuously keep customizing something, where just Blueprint or FlowGraph won't cut it, it's always good to know C++. There's a lot of the interesting functions games have made around were programming. All right, let's take the Medium for instance. The Medium has this interesting split screen dynamic. They did not. That was not a built-in function. They literally had to go into the renderer and make a separate image view and display that. That was in C++, undoubtedly. Okay, so this is why you need to know how to get around in C++, especially in CryEngine. It's not impossible to get around without C++ and CryEngine, but it is going to make your life a lot harder, and you're going to be quite limited. So let's get to it. Let's go and X out of this. Let's save it. Control S, X out. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to start. So what is a component, how to put down a component, and how to make your own. So this is the code, generally. I pulled for our own code because there's no way I have everything memorized. It's a lot, and you're not always going to do it. Okay, so this is what the code is going to look like if you need a screen capture of it, and that's the H file. This is the .cpp file. So you leave that there for a moment, and this is what it's going to look like. All right, so let's get started again. So assuming you already have your engine in here and it's a C++ version, which is required to do this, you're going to right-click on your game project. And since we're on Windows 11, you show more options. Generate solution, okay? Remember, you have to be on Visual Studio 2019. I think they support 2022, but don't quote me. I know for certain 2019 works, so you can go to the documentation site and make sure. Generate solution. All right, and that's okay in this case. You guys should be fine. For me, it's just something silly. But otherwise, you're okay, don't worry. Solutions, game.sln. And SLN is just solution file. Okay? So, we're going to go do this. And this actually should not even be here. Let's just go ahead and kill that. So, first things first, let's make a new file. New, not even right there. Let's just do it in the component. So, right click here. Let's add a new filter and call it components. So, literally components. I'll do component video for this one, for this case. Let's do right here, add class. Class name is my component. Okay, and yeah, let's just do inline here. There we go. We have our own thing now. So I'm just gonna do this right quick. or I'll put this right here, easier for me, and put you there. So pragma once, very important. Make sure you only have one, and make sure you only include it when you need it. Very easy, very basic, probably incorrect way. So we need to add the include. VR grabbable, no, not VR grabbable. Cry entity system. I entity component. This is necessary in order to make your own component because we're going to be extending ours public I entities component. It is a class, okay? So in order to, that's the wrong one, entity component, there we go. In order to properly do this, this has virtual functions. So think of it as virtual functions. It is in this case, again, not the expert, but in other languages, this would be the equivalent to an interface. All right, so we're just gonna copy and paste these here. Easy for me. And make sure they're public facing. All right, and of course, you also, this is very important. And I'll get to this in a moment, don't worry. So it's supposed to be this thing. And component, it does need that variable. Just add it right here. Bool is activated equals false. This needs to be static, doesn't it? No, it doesn't need to be static. But it does need to be before. Just because I'm not crazy, make sure I'm not crazy. Let's do my component is activated. Alright, maybe I am a little crazy. That is okay in this case. We're gonna skip over that for now. Oh, it does need to be static. Fine. Yeah, that's okay. Oops, sorry. Alright, so let's go over these. Reflect type, initialize, process event, and just ignore this for now. We'll deal with it a little later. Just commented out, it's bothering me just a tad bit. So, oh yes, let's do this. So, let's start with reflect type. Reflect type is what's going to be seen in the engine. So this GUID needs to be unique each time. If you have the same GUID, things are just going to not work in CryEngine. Think of it as it's an identifier that says, hey, our component has this identity of this crazy number. So let's make one. Let's go to build. How do we do this again? Create GUID. Registry format. New one. Do it a few times. Copy. Exit. And we're just gonna do this part right here inside the parentheses. Control V. Let's also get rid of the brackets. And now we have a new ID. You need to do this each time. Make sure you have the underscore cry underscore GUID. Okay. And then editor category. So if you go back into the video, you'll see there are different folders of components. So under mesh, it had animated mesh. Mesh under physics, it had ragdoll. In this case, we're going to call it custom. So everything we make, if anything that has this, will be put in the custom folder. If it has custom 1, it'll be put in the custom 1 folder. And we need to just label it. Let's call it printer, because we're just going to be printing things for the sake of it in this case. Initialize. Initialize is what is like the constructor for a component. This is the very first thing that will run prior to everything else. So you're literally setting it up and initializing it. That is as simple as it gets. Okay. Process event. So before we even get to that, let's go here instead. Event mask. So in CryEngine, there are different events, or in any game engine really. So there's a collision event. There is an entity update event. Say if my entity is moving around, it's being updated. Those are the two that come off the top of my head because those are the ones I use the most. Oh, an animation event. If an animation reaches a certain point in its life, or says this is the end, this is the beginning, or this is a point in time I am firing, it'll give me an animation event. So we catch these events and say, hey, this just happened, and we're letting you know. And we do what we need to do in the process event. This runs every frame. Okay, so if we are just looking for animation events, and it's only going to trigger, this process event is only going to trigger on that animation event. If we're doing entity updates, entities are always updating their state usually. So and we're going to be firing every frame, but whenever that update hits is when this process event is going to fire. Okay, so this is the bare basics of it. Let's just call this logger. Actually, I like that better. And this will print things out. All right, so and because that VR grabbable is bothering me just a tad bit, I'm gonna take a look at this. Velocity, wrong one. Let's go to weapon. It's just a simple. This is a simple game we've been looking around and messing with. Just some easy code. You could probably find this in the player.cpp actually. So let's do what offset. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, we'll do that later. Not bad. And I like debugging. Make sure things work, makes me happy. There we go, works. Just needed this reference. Okay, and CryEngine works off of references and pointers. That's actually all of C++. So now let's get into the actual meat of the component. Now let's just go ahead and move these here. Component video. No, that's not right. Yeah, component video. It doesn't mess with the file system. So be wary of that. So let's go ahead and reference this. So we always need this at the beginning. std.afx. Okay. Always. Your code will not work without it, and you'll get crashes, and you won't understand why, and you'll get quite upset. Okay. So let's go ahead and add these things. Static void register my component. Schematic IENV registrar. So this has to do with the schematic area. I have never touched the schematic area because I haven't had a need to. In CryEngine, I am told it is still experimental, so be wary of that. But this is how we register a component, okay? And let's do some imports here. Just gonna do this, okay? Look at that, already disappeared. So we don't need input, we don't need rigid body, we need that. Yeah, we need that. Component. CrySchematic, yeah, we need all CrySchematic actually. Core, and we don't need VR, we don't need VR. I'll leave math, math is good to have in here. Do I have mymath? Is this mymath.h? Where does it come from? Nope, it's not mine. Okay, we'll leave these here. And we don't need raycast or physics interface. So this is giving a red line because this class does not exist. All right. So what we need to do, my component. There we go, fixed. All right. So now we're not done. Cry static auto. Then we just need to call this function, register my component. Okay, so now we've registered our component into the system, but it doesn't matter because we don't have anything. It's not doing anything. So let's make it do some things. So it's called my component. And we need to have our virtual functions initialize. Make sure it's a void. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this. I keep typing it out. Void process event constant s entity event and event. This is our event system. Okay, now why are you complaining? Oh, it's not a pointer, it's a reference. It's a difference, by the way. And cry entity event flags get event mask constant. And return. Now, what do we want to return? We can return whatever we want. We want it to listen to specific things. So let's just return the when an event updates. Entity event update. Okay. So if you wanted to return something else, we would have this OR here, sort of like an OR. It's a binary OR. Okay. Make sure I'm good on time. And entity event collision. Let's do that. So we're listening for updates, we're looking for collisions. Okay, so let's just do something in the initialize. Let's say I have a global variable here. Let's do a bool initialized equals false. Okay, but whenever this function runs, initialize is going to be set to 2. That's your true equals true. So then we can just do this. No, this is just an example. In this example, I'm just going to be checking if it is initialized before doing anything. No matter what, initialized will run before anything. So this check doesn't need to be here, but this is just for tutorial purposes, okay? So we do event if event. Now I'm going to pull from one of my other examples here. So let's do VR grabbable. It's nothing too groundbreaking here. Process. Oh, that's why there's nothing groundbreaking in here. Okay, let's go to. I'm going to move this off screen. Make sure I'm not sharing anything I shouldn't be. So please give me one moment. Process event. Yeah. So let's get rid of this. So I don't have these things memorized. I just know how to do it. So we're checking in this case if it is an animation event. Now let's Control D. Now I want to check if this is an update. Okay. So update. And I want to check again is update. Well, I just want to see what all it has. Update event. Yeah. Update. If it's a collision, physics collision. See? Sent when a logged physical collision is processed on the main thread. Okay, so not bad. And we can probably see this here in our bullet class here. Look at this. Event equals entity event collision. You can also do it this way. It doesn't hurt. In fact, I actually like that way better. It's the same thing, quite literally the same thing. So if I control click into this, see this entity event physics collision. Now I think what we had before was the exact same thing. Physics collision. Where does this come from? Okay, it's the exact same thing. I like this. It's just it keeps it easy in my head, and we make sure we're not confusing things. It's good for me. Good review for me. All right, so we don't need animation event. So if it's initialized, if is update, not even that. If it's a collision update, if collision update CryLog collision. Let's do an else if. Else if is update. Not is super, is update. Okay. CryLog just an update. And for tutorial purposes, something really useful if you need to convert an integer to a string, and for it to log, since it's not like Python, you can't just put it in there and hope for the best. To string 20. Look at that. That'll save you a lot of heartache. Okay. So we have initialized, we have registered our component. We have everything here that's needed. So last step, control, or let's just do build solution. Okay, and we'll probably be able to see if it crashes or not. So look, it's building my component right here. Uh-oh, that's not good. So let's see. Oh, it's looking in the wrong area. Okay, it is indeed looking in the wrong area. Okay, so that's all right. Let me move off screen and open the other one for you, because I did copy and paste too. So actually, let's go through this. So what I did, this is very important. So what I did and why this error is here is because I copied and pasted from my, other solution. So I copied and pasted the entire game and I didn't set anything else up. And that's why we have to generate the solution again. Right? Because it's looking for things that just aren't there. It's looking at solutions, like, see, it's just not lining up. So that's not good, especially not good for us. And in this case, it's saying, hey, this already exists over here. So why are we recompiling it in another directory that it already exists? It doesn't make sense. So it's kind of crashing out, as if you'll say that. So let me open up the actual main project. So it's not going to hurt anyone. And we're just going to copy and paste. Don't worry. Okay, so same thing here. Let's just go ahead and add new filter, component video. Okay, very nice. Let's do the exact same thing. I'm going to add a class, my component. And let's copy and paste. And if this does not work, I will be stopping the video, but let's hope it works. Okay. Control A, Control V. Let's get the other one. Where are you? Let's move you here. Control A, Control C, Control V. And let's see. See, it's compiling my component. Still the same issue. Alright, so I may have messed up my project, guys. I'll be right back. Hello everyone, I am back. Just for a quick reference, the work that was done up until now did not mess up the project. It was OneDrive, and I'm going to show you why that happened, because if you're using a cloud sharing service and you're hosting things on there, you're going to encounter this issue. So let's go here. We had an issue with weapon discharge system and a few other files. So we have two unique ones here. But if OneDrive if there's a clash in content, OneDrive is going to do their best to try and fix that. And sometimes it can't. Sometimes it says, well, this one is too unique to just throw away. What their standards are for throwing it away and overwriting, I don't know, but I know it causes a problem. So you may have something like weapon or your component dash the name of your desktop .cpp. So this is, in a lot of cases, this is literally a copy and paste of the original file with maybe a few changes you had last week. these things happen, and it will crash it won't allow you to build. And let me show you why. So let's say we have my component. We have this. Let's say we have two copies of this. We have my component and then my component dash desktop. If there are two my components and it's also running the exact same thing, and it's also importing this header file, that is going to cause an issue because it will say, hey, we already have my component dot process event over here. We already have my component : get event mask over here. So you can't have two of these exact same things, especially when we're not function overloading. All right, so that's why it was crashing. So what I did, in the crash log, it usually tells you like dash desktop, and it'll tell you why there's two of each, and you're like, what's happening now? It's probably because that happened. So you need to go into your file directory of where it was found and delete it. You need to delete it. And if that still doesn't work, you go back, you delete all the duplicates, the unique duplicates that are messing up. You go back here, right click, and generate your solution again. That was the issue. So we're good. We are okay, but that is something you may encounter in the future, unfortunately. Just be wary of that. So up until now, we have our component made. We've done some debugging, and I told you why it happened. So before that, let's go ahead and there's another thing we need to discuss. So when we made our component, the header and C++ file towards the beginning of this, it was actually put here in this Win64 area. That's not right. No, it should not be there. We need to organize things. So this is how it's organized in CryEngine. Go to code. Okay. So yours is going to look a little empty. So what you should do is make a new folder, call it my components, just in this case, my components. And OneDrive is a little iffy. Okay, and so like here, so we have components, VR, and weapons. Now, since I added this folder, I need to add that new filter. It helps us organize and it helps it work too. My components. Okay, and just for this sake, I'm going to delete our component from here. Deleting it from here does not delete it from your file system. Okay, so I'm going to go to components. Now I'm going to assume this is the Win64 directory I was telling you about. So I'm going to go ahead and just Control X, go here. I'm going to go to my components. Okay, so it's here now, but it's not appearing here. We're going to do this, Control C. So Control click, Control C. Going to go to my components, Control V. And now it is in the same way, it's in the same format as our file system. So you could also just make a component and then put all your stuff here. All right, it's okay. So let's go here and Control Shift B. Look, it's compiling our component. Oop, we get an error. It's very important, guys. No such thing exists. So this is what I was talking about. When you move some things and delete some things around, it's going to complain, especially when you generate it. If you generate these files already existing. So let's see if it's here. It's not here. So what we need to do, because I pre-generated the files already existing and it generated this here. I'm going to X out of here. This is exactly what I had to do for the other one. Metrovis, right click, show more options, generate solution. Now this is not common. You don't need to do this a lot. This is just from crazy debugging of what you may see in the future, and it'll have you stuck. And I want you to be stuck. See, now that pre-generated file is gone. So anytime we make a new component, this is not going to be edited. This is only generated when we make a solution. So if I were to make another component, like my component 2, CPP, and H, we wouldn't have this issue and I could delete it fine. But if it's pre-generated with all of the code already there and you delete something, it's going to be looking for this and saying, hey, where is it? we can't build without these necessary components. All right, so let's continue. Let's Control-Shift-B. See? There we go. Now, just for sanity's sake, if for some reason your project isn't compiling and you can't understand why, like what's going on, this worked earlier, I didn't change anything. Sometimes your build just craps out. These things happen. Clean solution. It's like a reset, and then build solution. You can also press rebuild solution, but just clean and build. Rebuild may do the same thing. I'm not too clear on the details. So now we need to run it. So let's go ahead and go back to our my component, my component.h. Okay. So this is what we have. Go here, Solution Explorer. This may be emboldened for you. So if it is, right-click on Editor, Set as Startup Project. This launches the CryEngine sandbox in Visual Studio. If you just want to run your game, which I may cover in later tutorials, right-click, Set as Startup Project. But we're just doing Editor, so let's go ahead and get into that. Let's disable asserts. Let's just make a new level again. Call it my level, because I'm on a different project build. 1024. No, there we go. Okay, we have our blank empty space again. So let's make a new entity. Empty entity. Press 1, 2, and 3. Translation, rotation, scale. 4 is nothing. All right, so let's go ahead and add a mesh component. Mesh. All right. And if you can't see this console, go to Tools, Advanced, Console. See, I just made a new one here. So I'm going to close this one out and close this one. You can actually set your CVARs, which are just like settings through this in CryEngine. So, yep. And let's go ahead and give it, it's a mesh. Let's give it a rigid body. Rigid body is just physics. Okay, so this is our basic one. So let's do a sanity check. Look at that, it dropped and it had a collision. So let's add our logger, because that's the name of it. See, custom folder, logger component. This will print things out. Look at that, it's working. We just got an update and it says 12. So let's do this. Let's run it. Just running physics. Oh, see, we got a collision. It's colliding. So now we have our custom component. Yay! Good job, guys. So let's do a debug. Let's just assume this was not working for whatever reason. All right, and sometimes a lot of these things happen in code. And for those of you that are newer to programming, welcome. To those of you that aren't, I'm just going to be using the debug function. And this is, I think this is the last part of the video, I believe. Yes. Debugging and testing. So if something isn't working, let's just put these debug break symbols here. So we have it on line 38. So it's going to stop at line 38, but it will not run line 38. Okay? So let's do it on 37 actually. 37. Let's do 40. So we want to see if it's even hitting these. All right? Like here and here. So we just want to know, is it hitting it? What's going on? So right now we have a collision. So we have these debug symbols here, and once we go back into the engine, it's going to prompt us back because, you know, good frames per second. So look at that, we're back. So we have our verdict. So if we want to know the result of something, go under this. We have all the information we need is activated. It should say true. It says false, which is a little odd. Oh, yeah, because we don't use that variable. Go to event, parameters. All right, see, these things happen. So let's go into it. See, in this case, it did not have a collision update. So, but we do have some entity. We don't know what it is. Usually it shows, oh, see right here. So I'll hover over it. So, 5. is update. Usually just shows it here. I don't know why it's not doing it this time. That's all right. So hover over it and it'll say true, usually. It's a little buggy lately. That's all right. So let's run it again, continue. So continue. So we found out this was not hit, which means this is false. And it ran this else if is update, and it just says is just an update. So it did reach this. So this is how we know how to debug in CryEngine. Usually, for whatever reason, right now, we're supposed to be getting all the rest of the variables, but we don't. I'm not familiar with why. It's a new one to me. But usually it has all the variables down here, and we can see what the result of them, just all of them. So this is how you make your own component. So if you want to like, hey, how do I make a component jump, or how do I make it listen? It's just regular C++ from here on out. There is something called global, GENV. Right, let's just go ahead and kill this here. So press the square to kill it. GNV. Come on now, don't do this to me. My Visual Studio is a little off, but it's usually GNV, P entity system. And then you get a whole bunch of options that'll come up. Okay, but I'll go over that in another tutorial. But this is how you get started with a component. These are the bare basics of it. All right, good luck, guys.